Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It's Tuesday, July 17th. We're doing a little Newbie Tuesday, number 280. 480. I was off by a factor of 200. Not a factor of 200. I was off by 200. I know the physics nerds there going, that's not factors. He was off by 2 times 10 to the 2. This is a daily where we don't go back and re-record intros when we botch them. We just keep going on this Newbie Tuesday where we are doing a leak finder. What we do is we take your replay submissions, grabbed a couple at random that seemed like good general ones to run through, and we're running through them, talking a lot about the do's and don'ts. Got some good feedback literally in the break just now where people were asking things about the number of Hellions and the number of Marines and this sort of thing, so I'll try to be a little bit more strident about mentioning that type of stuff in part number 2 and 3. So per usual, continue to, talk in the chat because it helps me. It helps me know what people are wondering. And of course people going, lag, no lag, there's lag. I feel like there was something I wanted to mention. Of course, I'll be at the MLG Spring Arena this weekend. Oh, the other important thing. I have to have tooth surgery. You see these teeth here? They're apparently degrading. This tooth is actually going to disintegrate, was the word the dentist used. So I have to fly back to Kansas City because I'm not getting dental surgery in LA. That's the most expensive thing I've ever done. It's cheaper to buy a ticket and go to Kansas City and do it. So I'm actually going to be kind of out for a little bit of time. I'm totally going to be gone. But hopefully when I return, my teeth will be integrated rather than disintegrated. So I'm excited about that. I'm going to have all sorts of operations done. So when I come back, I am just as beautiful as Justin Bieber. I'm gonna keep throwing compliments Justin Bieber's way. I don't care, man. I don't give a shit. I believe in complimenting people. When's the last compliment you gave? A sincere one. Not to that girl you liked. And it wasn't even a sincere one. It was like, you're the most beautiful girl in the world. In the whole world. Because I've seen all of them. Because I speak in hyperbole. When's the last time you gave a compliment? When's the last time you were at the cash register buying, I don't know, ping pong balls? Because you've been in the mood for ping pong lately. It's a good game. And the cashier had on an amazing shirt. And you said, my God, that shirt is incredible. Where did you get that? You look so good in that shirt. When's the last time you did that, huh? But I love her so much. Oh my God, she's the most beautiful girl in the world. I want to grow up and be married to her. I don't care if she's never talked to me. Dunador down in the bottom right. And Hawk. Doo-doo-doo-doo. Now, one thing I want to note is that I didn't actually do that much intense reading of the opponent last game because I didn't really need to. Most of your significant reads can be done by finding out if the third base is there or not. If it's not there, play a little bit more defensively. If it is there, play a little bit more aggressively. And by the way, I'm kind of ignoring circumstances where you're going like one base. Like if you're doing a 1-1-1, which is a one-base aggressive strategy, you shouldn't be like, well, he hasn't taken a third yet, I guess I'm going to sit passively. For the super intentionally aggressive builds, be aggressive. But for everything else that's kind of like an early expand or a delayed expand, aggression is largely based on his choice of third. Doo-doo-doo-doo. Alright, Dunador, queuing up the probes. What we're going to talk a little bit about in this game is ideas of passivity. So for one, I will pretty much say, don't ever cut probes. You saw this build at 12, and you see how there's no probe here? I'll show that once again. This is a problem that adds up a lot, like a lot over time. A lot of people say never stop building probes, but it's so easy to moment, like right now you're at 150, okay, and I'm going to build it. And notice that I'm at 20. I can't build this probe right now. See how this probe finishes and I'm at 35 and I can't build? You don't want to let that happen like frickin' ever. Ever! I know the pros do it, but until you get Master League, you're actually not allowed to do this. I disallow you from doing it. Build this on 13, build this on 15, because the last thing you want is once again for this to finish and for you to not quite have another probe coming out. Build a probe, done a door. That's about all that I'm really going to say about that sort of mechanics situation. Because, to be honest, Dunador is playing essentially fine. He's getting his fine fine compared to the average bell curve of StarCraft players. I know that many of you are spoiled by GSL, and when you see someone miss a probe, you're like, who is this scrub-ass nubtard? Honestly, truly, this is pretty solid of an opening, right? Hitting the chrono boost right on time. Watching the minimap, obviously, should be a really high priority. It's very easy to just focus on this part of the screen, but just kind of looking down here a lot will just remind you of things. Hell, if you even look here, it will remind you that, oh, I haven't checked his third, I haven't taken a gas geyser. There's actually a hell of a lot of information there. So, I like simple plans. I like a simple, clear plan that involves a third base. Here's a simple plan. I'm going to go 3-gate Blink Stalker Aggression. Then I'm going to take my third, and then I'm going to get a bunch of more I'm going to take my second base, and I'm going to get a whole bunch of gateways, and then I'm going to take my third base. Pretty simple. I'm going to early expand, I'm going to start getting Colossus, and when I have 3, I'm going to take a third base, and I'm going to max out and kill him. That's so simple. Have a 1 to 2 sentence plan in every matchup. 1 to 2 sentences. It's just clear that it involves a third base. That's all I want. That's all I want. We see Dunador going for a robotics facility. I don't mind this choice. We walked up to a walled-off player. The one thing that I am concerned about... so we walked up to a walled-off player, so we obviously want a little information. We want to get an observer and poke into his base. You'll actually never need to get an immortal first, ever. If you send a stalker up, to actually send it, hell, send it all the way up here. If you send that stalker up and an attack comes, it actually takes about 30 seconds for the units to have vision and then to make their way all the way into your base, which is plenty of time to get an immortal out. Go ahead and get the observer out the first time every time. This will also allow you to get this second gateway up earlier. This immortal is just not that necessary. There's nothing that this immortal really does. 3-gate Robo, I don't actually mind so much. I know that the most pros early expand in some fashion, but parting does open this way fairly frequently. If you are going to be doing this kind of opening, then the ultra-fast aggression is really important. Going observer first, still always get that observer first, and then just push and go for it. An expand plants down, and this is a classic period of what are these gateways doing? What did this Robo do? What did these immortals do for you? There should always be something coming up, either an attack, and if you can't figure out an attack, then just expand. And actually I will stop on that because that's a really important point. If you can't figure out what you should be doing with your units, then don't build them. If there is an attack coming up that you specifically need them for, and you can articulate what the attack is, then build for that. So notice what happens when we have these two simple rules. It makes us very clear of when our attack timings are. It makes us think about those. It's not just this random sort of, well, I kind of feel like attacking, so I guess I'll attack. It's the, all right, I'm going to start building immortals now, and when I have 3, I'm going to attack. So I better have gateway units all along with that. Just very simple statement. Make sure you're having an attack coming if you build the units. And the other one, if you don't have a clear attack coming with those units, then don't build them. Just expand. What happens naturally out of this? The natural thing that happens is you start dying. You start encountering attacks that kill you, that make you say, shit, I should have just built some extra units. And then, that's when you should start kicking in and considering building units in the next game. Let's say you have a couple of units. Let's say you have some sentries, some immortals, because you're intending on doing an attack soon, and you get attacked and you just get destroyed. You'll say, man, I guess I better build some stalkers next time. Now when you have those stalkers, very clearly there is an attack that this will defend. How do you know there's an attack? Because it killed you! That's how you know! Here's the issue right now with what Dunador is doing. Dunador is doing the opposite logic. I'm first going to build units so that I don't die, and then if I'm not dead, then I'll figure out how to attack. That's the wrong order. What ends up happening is that Dunador makes these units, then no attack ever comes, And Dunador has no idea if this was right or wrong. Has no idea if this was right or wrong. If you build no units and then you die, you know you did something wrong. What I have done is I've presented to you a framework for learning if you're building units in the correct spots or not. That's built upon losses. Isn't that cool? Don't you now want the losses to happen? Because suddenly you're going to know whether you actually need these units or not. So I'll say in general, if you are building Immortals early on, get ready to do an attack. I'll also back up a little bit because it's Stalker. Where are you going, Stalker? Stalker totally sees nothing and yet retreats all the way back home. Leave that Stalker up at the front as early as humanly possible. Fairly fast Twilight Council. Actually don't mind that so much. I would argue that you can go ahead and get this Nexus up quite a lot earlier. Skipping these Immortals and just going for the 3-gate fast Twilight. Don't mind the Templar Archives so much either. Already this is looking defensive to me. I don't have to, I mean, sure, maybe. No, here's how I'm going to say that. It's easy to look at this position and say, oh my god, missed probes, late Nexus, build's bad. It just doesn't quite work that way. You have to look at what the build is sort of telling you about how you're supposed to be playing. If you're getting a Templar Archives, you're either getting Storm early and you're playing defensive, or you're getting a lot of Archons, which are good only if you have a lot of other units sort of thrown in the mix. Okay, so we're getting a Storm. We want some sort of clear defensive plan that involves Storm. This is not an attacking focus, so immediately I'll say something like, we should be taking a fairly early third base. This sort of drop stuff, this happens. Obviously, we cleaned it up, and it was not a big deal. But this is one of the reasons why we get the Observer early on. And also, I'll come back to just before the drop happened. The correct placement for Protoss units is 1 unit out at the Watchtower, or 1 unit at this Watchtower. The rest of the units back to be able to defend against drops, and very few units at the front. The front is probably the last place that you want to put them if you have some sort of forward vision. And that's one of the reasons why you want an early observer. You want to be able to check into his base and then pull right back to here, or pull back to here. This will allow you to position all your units properly, because position is like the hardest thing frickin' ever to do against a Terran player. Ever. This sort of jank happens, and that's one. But I'm not that torn up about it. Dunador did a brilliant job pulling these workers back, calmly engaging this, and then returning right back. So again, you're starting to see Dunador getting these extra gateways. I think that's perfectly fine, getting 6 gates. Still would like to see an expansion coming up soon. I'd ask, you know, when is your plan on getting the expansion? Again, do it in numbers. 3 gates, expand. 3 more gates, expand again. I've now stated my build in terms of some simple numbers that I can adjust a little bit later down the road. I actually like going for Speed Zealot Archon on 7 to 8 gateways with a Warp Prism. That's a really fun 2-base play. And then eventually taking a 3rd. But in this position, we have all these gateways to make all these units, but again, I would say, what is the goal of these units? Are we going to be attacking with them? Are we defending? What is our purpose? If you know exactly when you want to take a 3rd, you'll start feeling the pressure to take the 3rd earlier and earlier and earlier and earlier. So until now, we're just literally doing nothing until this push begins to happen. So I want to envision for a moment if we had taken a 3rd base coming up. We're about to see a big attack. Or I like this. Starting to poach ahead, maybe even wanting to run up and take that out. That seems great. The macro's slipping, and I'm going to come back to that in a second. Alright, you see, macro's completely gone, but has this 1 High Templar here. Watch this, this is awesome. Totally check this out. Oh no! Dunador smokes him! Look at that unit loss tab. Oh, hope you enjoyed playing Terran Hockey. I'm even going to mispronounce your name because fuck it, why not? I won the battle. Alright, that felt good. My friends, that felt good. Oh, that was so rewarding. our macro messed up, right? Again, you don't just say, my macro's bad, I have to work on macro. You have to look at when the macro went awry. We've been kind of floating around 500. 500 is actually the emergency number. If you're over 500, then you can pretty much say, holy shit, what a devastating position I've put myself into. I want the alarm bell to really go off at 500. I know that occasionally it will, even for pros, but still. Keep in mind, look, macro's going well, macro's going well. It's going good, it's keeping low. Building other things, getting a forge. Kind of missing some probes every now and again, getting some extra Templar in there. It's getting a little bit high, we're morphing, but notice that literally the instant this army moves out, look at what happens with our macro. We do one warp in round, and that's it. This is the first time we've broken 800, 1,000. We're about to break 1,500. Look, we're getting an observer, and a lot of times observers will be one of these like, oh my god, I can't see stuff, let me go get an observer. It's very natural to feel that. It's hard to feel your money getting high in a game. Look at that. No, nothing going on. This is a very common problem that a lot of people have. Like I'd probably say 90% of players have. When their opponent is moving out, with units, or when they have to do something with their army, the macro just falls apart completely. So you now have to like associate this trigger set in your head. If my macro, or if I see an army coming out, I better build stuff. You might not have the money for it then, but you want to create that link. Just like you create natural links in your head between, I can't see what he's doing on the map. I better build an observer. That's really natural. You want to create that seemingly unnatural link between, there's his army. Oh my god, am I making units? Because if you force that to happen, then actually that can override, or, well, first of all, it will help your macro. And in some extreme circumstances, I know many pros who have worked so hard to fix this problem that when they see an army, they always abandon their own army. Always, 100%. 100%. So either way, whenever we kill off a big army, it's time to expand. 100% of the time, when we demolish a huge army and there's no way he can put pressure on us, if those conditions are true, then we should expand, 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 taking a third base. And this is where numbers become important. I want 6 gates when I expand, and then I want 15 gates after that. Pick big, bold, grandiose numbers. Just get huge with them. This expand did go down, but was a little bit late. See a lot of pylons going down from Dunador. For the most part, everything that he's doing is correct. I would just again say that at some point you have to establish when you want to get that forge up. This is something that associates with our plan. So notice what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a simple build, or a simple plan. I'm going to go 3 gates, expand, build another 3 gates, and then take a third base. And then I'm going to get a whole bunch of gateways and kill him. Start slotting in the forge somewhere in there. I'm going to go 3 gates, expand, and build a forge. The double upgrades kind of need to happen at this point. So this attack is really ambiguous. This is dangerously problematic. Why? Because we have no idea if he has a third base or not. This is a clear issue. If we saw no third base, I wouldn't really see that much of a reason to push. Why push up a tight ramp with 3 bunkers on top when he has no money and we're about to get our third base rocking out? And on this kind of similar note, looks like we do have all our geysers saturated.
Mineral field depleted.
I think a very common problem that happens for actually just players in general is they get used to 2-base play, and then when they start taking third bases, they don't appropriately have another huge swell in production. Because when you get to late game, there's so much tech that you have now finished that there's no need to rebuild all these pylons. There's no need to get all these observers up, or excuse me, all these robo facilities up. So in this attack position, Archon's at the back, having maybe 1 Templar, 2 Templar, and the other 3 at the back, leaving those Templar at the backside, because you should never want your freaking guys to get killed off. And then around 130 to 150, gearing up to round off the composition. Gearing up to get the Colossi started. This is just really nice by Hawk. Here's really dangerous by Dunador. Okay, again, there's these units positioned here, but they're not really clearly doing anything. There's no reason for them to really be here. You can leave a stalker here and keep all the rest of your units back. Why would you want to keep them back? Because drops can happen from Terran at any point. And if he doesn't have a third base, drops and all that other stuff is really, really critical. Now, I'll note some things like macro's been an issue. Some of the expand timing has been an issue. But I'm kind of going to ignore that just because we got to talk about a lot of that in part number 1.
Base is under attack.
So in this circumstance, here is again one of these other painfully emphasizing moments where you realize, oh god, I have so much money, I better get these gateways up. The most common rule in macro is that if you have the money to do something, you should say to yourself, oh, I should have done it earlier. We have the money to get these 3 gateways right now. I guess I should have gotten 3 gateways earlier. And again, I'm not even questioning whether building 3 gateways is right or wrong. What I'm saying is that you want to do things as quickly as humanly possible. Now that the army is dead, I was talking about a Colossus transition. I would not do a Colossus transition right now. You need a rush to get those units up. Especially now that he has a 3rd up, I'd probably be a little bit like, ugh, again, until I'm at like 130 to 150. Other than that, things are looking pretty reasonable. Things are looking pretty good. There's a transition to Colossus. A little bit late. But now that our army's died, it's a little bit early, I'd even argue. Don't cluster your Templar. It's better to storm one at a time. Oh god. Oh god. At times like this, if you don't have the opportunity... Like, if I'm in Dunador's position, I kind of want to get the Colossi up. But I also kind of want to go for Blink. If I'm feeling really screwed, like right now, if I'm Dunador, I'm feeling really screwed, I'll actually neglect building Stalkers in this position. I'll try to keep as efficient an army as possible, as lean an army as possible with Zealot Archon Templar, and stay a little bit low on my base count. And just try to really focus on quickly getting to that maxed point with a good number of Colossi. You'll see a lot of Protosses in emergency mode do this, and that's kind of the reasoning why. If you have a small army and you have like 5 Stalkers in there, it's just, they don't really deal that much damage. They're generally used to kind of versatily kill off a lot of medevacs, but you just need a big army fast. Zealots are like the roach of Protoss. Just derping, building some roaches, right? That's what Zerg does, and they're good until you get maxed, and they're kind of bad. That's the way Zealots are. Great to build in emergency situations. And this is another one of the reasons why we would focus on Stalkers, or excuse me, Colossi over Stalkers. Our ability to be able to deflect this sort of stuff. There was the big foible where we didn't quite manage to get a lot of good storms down. But honestly, I think Dunador was inches away from being able to win this game. If he had literally done the same thing that he did before, but just focused non-stop on macroing, he would have been in good shape. I want to point out again something that happened with our macro, right? So we're at 1900. Oops, let's go back even earlier to 22 minutes. Alright, our money's a little high. Dunador kind of joking about his comments. Oh, checks up there. Alright, money's being spent. We've been hovering around the same amount. We've been between 1600 and 2100. Look, it's getting lower. Look at all the stuff we're doing. And then we see an army move out. And just look at the money. The money gets to 2,000. We whiff. We morph in some more. Okay, cool. But we only did it after we were done controlling our Templar. Now we're moving around with an army. Still getting kind of good. But the instant we start to be more aware of what the army is and what's going on, this is when our money skyrockets. It's a clear theme that whenever there's an enemy's thing going on, like a big army that we're trying to storm, we lose focus. And you're probably seeing the pattern that I'm doing over and over again. Look at the money, as high as it's ever been is in that. The pattern I'm hitting over and over again is, okay, we have a problem with our gameplay. We don't just say, I better fix that problem with the gameplay. But what you should do is say, when does that problem happen? let's go back and find out the cause, and then let's attack the cause. The cause is when we see our opponent's army, we forget about what's going on in the main. So I have to create a mental link of saying, whenever I see an army, I better make sure the macro doesn't happen. For me, it used to happen whenever I got my Mutalisks out. I'd get my Mutalisks out and I'd start harassing with them. It didn't matter if I was concerned about his force or not. Just whenever I was harassing, I was like, oh my god, I'm awesome, I'm the man. Oh, I don't have any money. And I had to just say, anytime I'm clicking a Mutalist, I better hit 5-1, 5-1, 5-1 and make sure that I'm just aware of my hatchery. That sort of good stuff. So we're just going to go on to kind of a fast TVT after this point. That's going to be a little bit more focused on attacking and less on bases. And then we'll wrap up the daily. How does that sound? How does that sound to you?